my show. I just wanted to welcome everybody. We're so excited to have our very own Ruth Hendel and her partners in A Walk on the Moon, Pamela and Sharyl, here with us for a very special program. I want to thank Holly Fink and the World Jewry Committee of WJC for putting this together. We're up over 75 logins. There's probably, we're getting close, 130, 140 people here, which is just a terrific turnout for a Tuesday night, a weekday night. And thank you all for being here, for making the time. And I'm going to turn it over to you, Holly.
Thank you so much, Rabbi. So everyone, my name is Holly, and I am from WJC. I'm on the board of trustees, and I'm also the head of the World Jewry Committee. And on behalf of WJC, I'm honored to welcome Pamela Gray, Sharyl Kaller, and Ruth Hendel from A Walk on the Moon, a new musical. I could not be more excited. So welcome, ladies. While you're listening, everybody, if you have a question, please use the chat box to type it in, and we'll answer them in like the last 10, 15 minutes. We have a lot to talk about. We'll be showing some songs from the show, a few images, so there'll be some visuals as well. And we're recording the information so you all can watch it later. And with that, we're going to get started. But before we launch our conversation, I want to tell all of you a little bit about each fantastic woman that we have here tonight. And these really are amazing ladies, believe me. You're all in for a treat. I'm going to start with Pamela Gray. I'm sure many of you have seen the movie, A Walk on the Moon. She is a screenwriter for that film. And she's also the book writer and doing additional lyrics for A Walk on the Moon, the musical. She also wrote the movie Conviction and Music of the Heart. By the way, all of these bios are way too long, so I'm doing the best I can. You're getting just the gist of all of them. They're amazing, the bios too. Sharyl Kaller is a director. She directed Terrence McNally's Tony-nominated play on Broadway, Mothers and Sons, with Tyne Daly and many other shows. She received a Tony nomination for Best Director of the Broadway production of Next Fall by Geoffrey Knopfs. I hope I said that right. Cheryl?
Jeffrey Knopfs. Yeah, Jeffrey.
Good. She's currently in development with Billy Porter, Ryan Spahn, Dan Fogler, Anne Marie Milazzo, among others. And many of you in this room tonight in the Zoom know Ruth Hendel. She's a longtime WJC member, and I'm very privileged to call her my friend. She's an active theater producer and has co-produced over 70 Broadway productions. I will tell you that every time I open a playbill, I see my friend's name in it. And it's always a play that I like, always. Together with her husband, Stephen, who's also here, they have developed and produced Fella on Broadway and executive produced Alex Gibney's documentary, Finding Fella. Ain't Too Proud, Beetlejuice, and Mean Girls are a few of her recent Broadway productions. Other select shows include The Band's Visit, Hedwig and the Angry Inch, A Raisin in the Sun, and Caroline or Change. Her off-Broadway highlights include, I'm sure, one show that we've all seen here in this room, the Yiddish production of Fiddler on the Roof. Ruth also serves on numerous boards. And she and her husband, Steve, are longtime congregants of WJC, like I said, and also trustees of the Jewish Theological Seminary. They're often found playing with their grandchildren. And in her spare time, she weaves talit, which is amazing. I can't believe that. That's cool. Okay, so that's my intro. We're going to kick off the conversation with Ruth. Ruth, first of all, thank you so much for bringing this amazing conversation to WJC and for being here tonight. And Steve, thank you so much for being here. It's an honor. It really is. When did you and Steve enter this project, A Walk on the Moon, the musical?
Oh gosh, it must have been over 10 years ago. We had been working with a composer, Paul Scott Goodman, on a Scottish musical. He's Jewish and he's Scottish. And, we worked with him for a few years and, we made a lot of progress. In the meantime, he came to us with A Walk on the Moon. Somewhere along the line, either he had contacted Pamela Gray, the writer of this, she was the writer of the script for the film, or Pamela contacted Paul, the composer. To this day, I don't know what went down. Nonetheless, Paul came to us and he told us about, the potential of A Walk on the Moon as a musical based on the film. Well, we eventually met Pamela and we fell in love with her, and we signed up pretty quickly. Not to say that A Walk on the Moon wasn't our favorite all-time film. So we were so thrilled to meet her. We love her, we love her story. And we could see that it could be musicalized. Certain movies, you wouldn't want to go there at all. But what she had written in the form of a film could be musicalized. So between the composer, Paul Scott Goodman, and Pamela, sort of really learning how to write a script for a musical. I think she had, some learning to do, like we all do. I think we have something really great. So, and then Sharyl Kaller came in as well. And then it was all Borscht.
Amazing, thank you.
Thank you.
And I do want to talk to Pamela and Sharyl all about the show, of course. But before we launch into that conversation, it's really interesting that the show transports audience back to 1969, a year we all know a lot about. It's the year that a man took his first steps on the moon. It's the year of the Manson murders, the Stonewall riots, Woodstock, which some of the characters in the play go to, and the film, the racial protests, and Richard Nixon, of course. Change was in the air, and it kind of reminds all of us what's happening right now. Can you all talk about, any of you actually can answer this question. Can you talk about bringing the show back now and what that means to you and to all of us?
Well, before 2020, I always felt that what's been going on in this country the past few years had more and more resonance of that summer of '69, when there was the sense that there was a monstrous human being in the White House. And the younger people at the time were so angry that Nixon was in charge. They were so angry about the war in Vietnam, and they were taking to the streets. That had really started earlier, around the summer of '67 was a peak. And sadly, issues of women's liberation are still relevant today. And a woman feeling that she didn't have choices, they were made for her. And the main character of A Walk on the Moon feels like something's unexpressed, but in the beginning of the story, she can't even express what's unexpressed. But this feeling that there can be more to life as a woman, which I wish was not true for any women today, but it still is. And I think since 2020, where we have been seeing people in the streets expressing their rage and taking action about things that you feel you can't do anything about. The level of involvement since George Floyd's murder has just brought the issues of that summer, they're reverberating. And I think it was a story that would have resonated 8 years ago when we started working on this. But I feel like right now, people are living a lot of what's getting expressed in the musical, especially by the young characters in the musical, by the blouse man. And Pearl starts to evolve into understanding the world through their eyes. It becomes her vision too of the world, and that we can do something about the world.
Cheryl, do you want to add to that?
Steve, you wanted to talk? Were you going to say something, Steve?
No, you go ahead, Cheryl.
No, Sharyl, this is, please.
I mean, I think what Pam said is right on. I think that it's, I think there's different time in history where the same problems come up over and over and over again. And I think nothing has been more clear to us than since January 6th, where we saw people wearing Camp Auschwitz t-shirts on their, in the insurrection, and the 6 million weren't enough. And, Pam really gets to the heart of what it means for Jews to assimilate. 69, the 60s were, I mean, I grew up on Long Island, and there was my mother had a bumper sticker on her car that says, "We will never forget," right? And we forgot. We did. We grew up in this New York bubble. My kids weren't exposed to it in the way that I mean, I think that seeing the levels of racism, seeing the levels of anti-Semitism, seeing, how when young people take to the streets, it really does make a difference. But also this world that I think that Pam in the play, in the musical, has given 3 generations of people, and what is Pearl and Marty's generation and Walker's generation, for that matter, to the kids, to the grandmother's generation, and what kind of world was she leave, like I'm feeling on a day-to-day basis, what kind of world am I leaving to my children? I don't have grandchildren, but Ruth and Steve have a crap ton of grandchildren, right?
Yeah.
Like, what kind of world are we leaving for Ruth and Steve's grandchildren? And so I think this play really, really digs into that, because history does repeat itself. It does. It actually does. And I also think the play offers a lot of hope in that sense too, that, that smart people can, and young people and people who care can build community and make a difference. And I don't want to, for those of you who haven't seen the movie, there's just this beautiful act of kindness between the men in this film. And that's the other thing. It's just, if there were just more acts of kindness, just the simple act of kindness is just so important to what we're living through now. So obviously I feel very passionate about it.
Steve, did you have something to add?
Well, I think the only thing I'd say is that you said, how do you bring something back, that's 40 years old, 50 years old? And the idea of the production is to bring something back from that time period, but have the audiences realize that it's contemporary and about things happening today. And, I think we've spent a lot of time thinking about how to make sure that when people are sitting in the theater, they're being moved and they're entertained, but they're also understanding that they're watching something that's about them. And, I think that's something we're all striving to achieve when we get the show up in front of an audience.
Absolutely. And speaking of getting the show up in front of an audience, I know you had a production of the show in New York and San Francisco, and it was coming to New Jersey, to the George Street Playhouse.
Right.
What was it like when the pandemic hit for all of you, for every single one of you with this show? Because you were going into rehearsals in a few days, right?
Right.
Yes.
We were absolutely devastated. And we were in a quandary. Should we close? Shouldn't we? Who's going to tell us what we should do? And finally, all of Broadway closed. And we just knew anyway that we had to, actually we had 2 actors coming in from LA. They were, because we were starting rehearsals the following in 2 days. And we had to tell our leading lady, Jackie Burns, and our leading male, Jonah Platt, that do not get on the airplane. Do not come to New York, stay where you are. And we had to call everybody up and say, I'm sorry, we're on hold. And that's basically what happened. I mean, it was really sad. It was hard.
Cheryl, do you want to comment on that?
Well, I was about 40 hours from leaving from LA to New York. I had sent 3 months of clothing to my mother, who's on here. She's not showing her face, but you have so much adrenaline before a production, and it was just cut. But what I talked about with our team is it started with just this personal devastation, but within days, it was the whole world. It wasn't just this terrible thing that happened to me, this moment, but there was this feeling of you work so hard to get to that point, and it's like, oh my God, am I going to be dead before this gets on stage? It's just like suddenly it was in this unknown, but it was so much bigger than us, and it it could have, I mean, this is a time when we could say it really could have been worse. We could have been in our third performance, you know, it could have been previews, it could have been the day before we opened. So in a way, the Band-Aid got ripped off before we had started. But sure, oh, it was bad. It was bad.
And as like true artists, we've been working on it all year too. So that's been kind of cool. I mean, I don't want to be the Pollyanna of this, but like, you know, for those of you who aren't intimate with theater, I mean, the whole industry is shut down, soup to nuts. Every Broadway house has the set sitting there. You know, Ruth and Steve put our set into storage. Our set was built for our show. And when we were first shut down, it was like, oh man, we're not going to get to do Walk on the Moon. I wonder when we'll get to do it. And now we're in a year into like, oh, we haven't worked other than on Zoom for a year, you know? And as theater artists, it's been just I mean, it's been just, there are no words to describe what it means, like literally one day, 3 years of your life, just every, you know, because, and particularly as freelancers, you know, we plot out what we're doing, if we're lucky, 2-3 years in advance, and all of a sudden you have no work for 2 or 3 years, and you're trying to get in touch with the New York State unemployment insurance. That's what you're trying to do. So I would say that like we've been really lucky because we've been keeping creatively active, and Ruth and Steve have been keeping us on the, you know, the train of like knowing, and we have the show rescheduled already. Whereas I would say that 90 to 95% of the people in our business don't know when and if their shows are coming back. Not the Broadway shows, but people who were shut down before they were running.
Right. Actually, some of the Broadway shows have closed.
Yep.
My show, Mean Girls, decided not to reopen. So that was, I mean, that was a really a kick in the tuchus when I heard that. So it's been very difficult for everybody. And I want to say when we were about to open in at the George Street Playhouse in New Brunswick, New Jersey, we were fully confident that we had the show that we wanted to. We were on the top of our game. And then as we were closed down a year later, there was so much more that I know Sharyl and Pamela have been talking about the characters, how it's like they're reflecting on how these characters were in 1969 and how they are relevant today. And you've added, I know, so many more nuances, and you dug deeper into the characters. Because
what this did, yeah, I mean, like for instance, what this did is like Pam found out that, I didn't know this, but like she did some research, and like Richard Nixon, he called, you know, his West Coast house, the West Coast White House. And I mean, if that's not a mirror of what Mar-a-Lago is, right? You know, or, you know, she's gotten like all these quotes from whether it be Reverend Abernathy after Martin Luther King was shot, or so what she's done is she's written in all these she's put in all this video. We have a very, very brilliant video designer, a man by the name of Tal Yarden, who is from the Borscht Belt.
Yes.
He grew up there, and he did Network on Broadway, et cetera, et cetera. And anyway, he and Pam have been just collaborating on all this stuff that it feels like, with Nixon saying it felt like, I don't want to say his name anymore, but our other president, the one that's not there anymore, you know, almost verbatim what is going on. Almost, you know, you hear the kids from Parkland, you know, and what the kids at that time were saying about the Stonewall riots, or about like all the things that Holly was speaking about. And Pam just found all this great stuff, and we're going to show all this video footage. And also the, you know, I remember, you know, I mean, of course we all remember when the hope that we felt when the man, you know, when he landed on the moon, when Neil Armstrong walked on the moon. And she's just, so it's also the whole show, like as Steve was saying, it's all this multimedia stuff as well. Very, 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 very modern feeling to the show, yet it's very rooted in 69, and it really speaks to what we're going through now. It's uncanny.
Yes, how do I do that?
The other little side note is the day that the men took off to leave for the moon is the day that Ted Kennedy went off the bridge at Chappaquiddick. And it was, this had been in the show already. The footage of Ted Kennedy apologizing to the public and hoping that people would still have faith in him. And he got away with it. I mean, this was a very public example of a famous politician, a Kennedy, possibly being involved in leaving the scene of possibly, accidental death, and, the world watching this. So before, what reverberated with Chappaquiddick is, it was in the movie and you can't really hear it. And we are, I'm trying to get it back into the musical, but the women, the night of the moonwalk, this was gossip, so here's Pearl Kantrowitz getting ready to go shtup someone outside her marriage. And all these women are talking about, do you think he was shtupping her? And do you think, what, were they having an affair, him and that girl? And, and she's losing her mind. I didn't have to make that up. It really did happen at the same time. So, yeah.
I think one thing that, we were really ready, as Ruth said, to have the show presented in March. But, the world right now is really very different than what it was in March of 2020. The last 12 months have been a journey and an ordeal, and everybody is thinking and feeling things differently than they did then. And, that will be the case when we get to November, hopefully, when we present the show. And so one of the things we have to do is make sure that the show that we had contemporized for an audience in March in 2020 is, brought up to date for an audience that exists post-pandemic in November 2021. And that's one of the artistic challenges that we have to work on, for the balance of this year.
Oh, gosh. I have one question for Pam about the bungalow colonies, because of course that's a world that Jews know very well. Can you talk about writing about the bungalows and the Jewish experience in general?
Yes, well, I spent all my summers, there's still dispute whether I was still in diapers the first time I went to a bungalow colony or whether I was walking. But that was what we did in the summer. It is completely mirrored in the film and now the musical, where my parents saved all year for the bungalow colony. And we're talking about like saving up $250, and that was a struggle. And we would, it was the Jewish migration, usually, right before 4th of July weekend. And the fathers would go home on the week, on Sunday nights, and they would be working during the week. And during the week, it was women and children and maybe some bubbies and zadies. And this was a world that I loved as a child. We literally, my parents got their first apartment on a street that was all mud. And I remember we each got a stick in front of the house. That was our first tree. That tree did not grow in Brooklyn my whole time living there. So going to the country, being in nature, and then when I was a preteen, like being free. And then around, that cusp from preteen to teen, I didn't want to be there anymore. And why do we have to go here? And a lot of the stuff that Allison expresses in the musical and the movie. When I grew up, I found that I was constantly telling the same story to people of what bungalow colonies were. And it wasn't, not all Jews know about them. West Coast Jews don't know about them, and it's the world that we've seen in media is the world of the big hotels. And I started thinking about this story before I was even a screenwriter. And I watched Dirty Dancing, which was so de-Jewed. But I thought, okay, all right, we know they're Jews, but there was a real difference between the Jews who would go to a hotel for 2 weeks and had that kind of money, and the ones who would like recreate, it was like a shtetl. You'd go with your mishpucha or your same friends every year. And I just started looking back on how fascinating this world was, especially the world of women and children all week, women without their husbands. And when I became a younger screenwriter and I was in film school, where my mentor, he's in one of these squares right now, Hal Ackerman. When I was thinking about what screenplay I wanted to write, it started with, I want to show this world. I was very aware that this was a lost piece of Jewish culture being held on to by the Jews who knew that culture and had gone to bungalow colonies or knew about them. And that, so I was like, I want to show this to the world. I want the people who went to the Cuckoo to feel like that's my life. And I want people who've never heard of it to say, what is this world before it vanished? And then it was about coming up with a story. And as soon as I settled on the summer of '69, because I had been there many, many summers, structurally, it was like, oh my God, Moonwalk there and Chappaquiddick there and Manson murder there and Woodstock. And it was, I had the place, I had the time. And then I kind of went back to what I kept saying. It's only women during the week without their husbands, and then became the what if. And that, then the story emerged, and there really were blouse men and girdle men and bathing suit men and linen men, because just remember, these are working class Jews with one car. So where could the women go during the week? You could walk to town, but this was a way for the women to go shopping. So we had this influx, and my mom talks about they'd be in the middle of like a mahjong play, and it was like, attention ladies, the blouse man is on the premises. The blouse man is on the premises. Tiles down, up you go, money in the bra, you go shopping. And so one thing led to another. It's like, okay, well, this is an obvious way for one of these women to find someone. And I like the concept of the blouse man, but I knew it couldn't be our real blouse man, Larry Leibovitz, who, did not look like Viggo Mortensen. And it was like this conceit. What if a hippie or someone who really represents the summer of '69 enters this world, is the outsider in a world that's comprised of outsiders who find community in these places. And just going back to what Sharyl said, and January 6th and the Auschwitz shirt and the 6 million were not enough, and the temple being shot up. I mean, I've thought more about anti-Semitism in the past 4 years, like on a regular basis, than I have in years. And this isn't, I didn't say I want to write a show about anti-Semitism, but the Jews were in these places for a reason. They needed to feel comfortable and safe and feel community for a reason, and it wasn't just to get the fresh air. So.
Right.
Thank you. Who would like to set up our first song, which I'm so excited to play for everybody? Ground Beneath My Feet, with the fabulous Jackie Burns singing it.
Sharyl, would you like to?
I'll set it up. Pearl was playing mahjong. The blouse man was on the premises. She went to go see the blouse man. He wasn't Seymour Schliffstein anymore. In the movie, he was Viggo Mortensen. And in the play, well, we're going to surprise everyone because it is a year and a half later. I can't commit, Jonah Platt, Jackie Burns, but you never know with freelance actors. Anyway, and he gives her a tie-dye T-shirt, and he writes his number down, and she has just called him to ask him. She just found out that her husband isn't making it up for the moon landing because he's a TV repairman, and a lot of TVs needed to be fixed so everyone could watch the moon landing. And she just called the blouse man to ask him to watch the moon landing with her. And she sings this song.
Here we go.
If I could sing, I would help, but none of you are.
We're trying one more time. Don't give, wait 1 second.
All good.
Time. One more time. Go. Go.
Just. Oh.
Hope so.
Ali, I think you might need to unmute yourself for us to hear the sound.
So I can't breathe at all. Look at me, I'm shaking. Must be insane. My heart is racing like a runaway subway train. Something's happening. Somebody crack that mirror. That woman isn't me. Somebody slam that door and throw away the key. She better snap awake. She's making a big mistake, but she just can't seem to keep the ground beneath her feet. I need a cigarette, which I need 3 or 4. The voice keeps whispering, no, a voice keeps shouting more. First I'm boiling hot, then I'm freezing cold. First I'm a woman, then I'm 17 years old. What is happening? Somebody break that mirror. I don't like what I see. That crazy woman there, she can't be me. Look at my life, I'm reeling. Listen to my heartbeat. I just can't seem to keep the ground beneath my feet. Party's going on. Then you're gonna ruin it. Girlie, I'm telling you, don't wanna smash that mirror. Don't wanna break the spell. Don't wanna stop this dizzy rush of heat. A man on my head, I'm spinning. This terror tastes so damn sweet. I just can't seem to keep the ground that's turning upside down beneath my feet.
How did everyone like that? That's incredible. That's a fabulous Jackie Burns. Can you all, oh, there we are. Can you all speak about her and the casting of this show? Filling some big shoes from the film.
No.
Well, I'd like to just have a funny Jewish geography story about the casting of the show to start out with. The one Tara Rubin casting, which is a casting office that probably represents like half to 3/4 of the Broadway musicals. A woman by the name of Mary Sugarman is one of Tara's casting people. And Mary and I met when we were 2 years old because our parents bowled together at the Temple Hillel Bowling League in Valley Stream, New York. And we used to go to the country. We used to go to the Catskills, to the Pines and the Homowack and Kutchers together on the Temple Hillel bowling weekends. And now Mary Sugarman is casting our show. So that's pretty cool for me.
All of us.
I mean, the casting process is, Jackie did about 4 auditions. I mean, she has been a mainstay of Broadway for a while. And interestingly enough, when we first did the show out in San Francisco, she auditioned and very, very sadly, her, what's different about theater than film and television is film and television, so much of it can be handled in post. In theater, it's kind of like what you're going through at the time. And the first time that Jackie auditioned for us, her grandmother was dying, and she couldn't drop in. She was going through so much in her own life that she just couldn't drop in the audition. And then when we were casting again, she came back in, and I mean, listen to the way she sings. That's kind of ridiculously wonderful. And she just was Pearl. She understood Pearl. Ruthie, I think it was Ruthie, you and I were in the room the first time, right? We were in the room together. Pam was in LA. Steve, you were overseas, I think, but it even came across on the tape, right, Pam? Yeah.
Oh, it's that feeling of, oh my God, there's Pearl, and it's visceral, and it's not, oh, this could be, it's just, we found her. And
exactly. You
that
feel
was before I heard her sing.
What, Pam?
Before I even heard her sing.
Oh.
But, watching her act, it was like, oh, there's Pearl. Yeah, there she is. So, and then the singing. I mean, I have goosebumps every time I see that clip. It's like, oh my God, she's so great.
And then of course you cast, then of course you cast Marty Kantrowitz with Jonah Platt. Talk about his casting as well.
Jonah, this is, now I'm telling like tanking audition stories. Jonah lives in LA. Jonah Platt is Ben Platt's older brother. Yes, he is. He's a Platt. He's part of the Platt family. And Jonah and I are with the same agency. And Jonah auditioned via tape, and it wasn't good. It wasn't right. And but I knew, well, no, interestingly enough, my daughter told me, Mom, because she used to be in casting, and she said, Mom, he doesn't, give him another chance because I think he's really right. And I went, okay. And I called his agent, who's with my agency, and I did a Skype session with him. I did about a 2-hour Skype session with him, and we gave him like 5 scenes and 2 songs. And he's been our Marty since day one, Jonah Platt. And then, the ensemble is interesting to cast because this is a show, as Pam was talking about feminism, this is a show with a very strong female ensemble, and the women have to act, sing, and dance. And so musicals are tricky to cast because you have to be a triple threat to do a musical now. In the olden days, there used to be a singing chorus and a dancing chorus, and then the actors who acted, like there were non-singing roles in musicals, if everybody remembers. Like, in Oklahoma, Aunt Eller doesn't sing. She stands churning butter, while, he sings, "Oh, What a Beautiful Morning." Aunt Eller was, now musicals, everybody has to be able to sing, dance, and act. So it's a very, very long process. It's months and months and months long casting process.
And how important was it for you to cast Jewish people?
Very, very. The play has a Yiddishkeit feeling to it. I do think there are non-Jews who have the Yiddishkeit. A lot of people, who grew up in the New York metropolitan area. What I will say is, it's very Jonah. The Platts are Orthodox Jews. They're practicing Jews, and Jonah had just gotten married to a woman who just converted, and we would do Friday night challah, and we would do Friday night Shabbos services in his like rental apartment, with his shiksa goddess wife, who's gorgeous, would sing, would say the bracha, and it would be gorgeous. And I think a lot of what Jonah brought to Marty has a lot to do with his Jewishness, and has a lot to do with him and how important it is being a Jewish man. And even though he did marry a woman who wasn't Jewish, it was part of the deal. She converted, and they have a beautiful son now. And I think that's a lot of what makes Marty. I think a lot of the fear of the women and the men in the bungalow colony for going outside their comfort zone is because every time Jews left their comfort zone, something happened, crap happened. So I do think that knowing what it means to be Jewish, or at the very least having a Yiddishkeit, is incredibly important to the casting of the show.
And I want to talk about the romance between Walker and Pearl. I can't get that scene from Woodstock out of my head when Allison catches sight of her mother tripping and being held by this gorgeous man, and their passionate scene under the waterfall. Please talk about how you brought that to the stage. Anybody?
Well, I'll start with the Woodstock scene where, I mean, we, in our San Francisco production, Allison, they're literally both on shoulders. And as compared to a film where, we didn't split a screen in the film, you're going from that person to that person. In theater, it could be simultaneous. And in theater magic, Allison sees her mother and her mom's boobs right there. And in the same way, Sheryl's directing of the Moonwalk Night is so glorious. And you've got men walking on the moon, and you've got, the bungalow colony people watching it, and you've got Marty home alone, you got Allison with her first tongue kiss, and there's Walker and Pearl stooping for the first time, and it's all happening on the same stage. So, everything but the waterfall, which, by the way, was not what that scene was supposed to be in the movie. There actually were scenes of Pearl and Walker talking to each other while they were at the waterfall, and the sound did not work. The footage just didn't come out well. So Tony Goldwyn, our director, and the editor decided to make this montage, of the waterfall, which, got rated one of the sexiest scenes in Entertainment Weekly, named it number 9, the sexiest scenes in movie history. But what musicals are about, expressing things in song. That's been part of the challenge and the joy of my learning curve. People can sing, they don't have to always say things. And here's an example of Pearl and Walker are going to have, we've had different versions of it, but a very passionate, fabulous song that tracks their affair over a couple of weeks' time. And, people who know the film might say, where's the waterfall? But our hope is that it'll give you the same feeling, even if you can't see Viggo Mortensen's Toches.
Oh my gosh.
I think, Holly, you're mute.
I'm back. Sorry about that. I was getting our next videos ready so that it plays flawlessly. But I do want to talk about Allison before we do that. I can't get the scene out of my head from the film when she gets her period and it's announced all across the camp. I love that scene. But I want to talk to you about her character's evolution from screen to stage. Did anything change with her storyline?
I think she's much more obnoxious in the musical. And is this, the story was always meant to show that Allison was a force in that household. Allison was bringing the 60s into that apartment in Brooklyn and now into that bungalow. And that if Allison, Sharyl always says, if men hadn't walked on the moon and Allison hadn't gotten her period, Pearl wouldn't have stripped the blouse man this summer. That it's this sense of change is just impacting. And she is this force of nature who, I think that in the musical, again, because she can sing what it feels like to want to be bursting out and be free and to have this, she's more politicized in the musical and will be even more so by the time we get to the theater again, hopefully in December. And it was always meant to be a mother-daughter parallel coming of age. And Pearl watching her daughter have the life of a pre-teenager, which Pearl didn't have. She got pregnant when she was 16. She went on one date, one date, one shtup, then she's a mother. So watching her daughter with all this fire is part of what, and it wasn't meant to be like this competition, but just this awareness, this visceral awareness of what she missed. So, yeah, I mean, she's based on me. I was obnoxious that summer. I did not have the nerve to run off to Woodstock. I was a nice Jewish girl, still regret it. But, decades later, I got to have my, alter ego get to do it. But there was this feeling that summer, which I remember very clearly, because Woodstock, again, people who didn't go to the Catskills don't know that the Woodstock Festival was in the Catskills and in the middle of the bungalow colonies. And seeing the hippies, like walking past the bungalow colony, the sense of the culture clash and worlds colliding was important for me and is really important for Allison.
And I think that Pam wrote up Allison. I think she made her more politicized. I also think, and I thought, Allison in the movie was brilliantly done, and I love the movie. I do think that, the film was in 1999. I became involved, I guess, about 5-6 years ago, and we did it in San Francisco a couple of years ago. And still till this day, there's films and plays and TV shows about men having affairs and everybody, forgiving men for doing that. And when women have affairs, they're horrible and they're terrible mothers. And Pearl, and Pam was given those notes when she was doing the film in 99. And we were giving her those notes, the same thing 3 years ago when we were doing this. And I think Steve put it best, is I think that Allison has what's very contemporary about Allison in the play, which I think is written up more than it was in the film, is her thirst for knowledge, is her politicization, is believing that she can change the world, that if they go to Woodstock, they really believe that by going to Woodstock, by showing up, and she really believes that. And so Walker is telling Pearl about the Stonewall riots and about, the schools getting integrated and all of that. I mean, like, let's be, this happened in 69. I went to school in Boston in 78. The schools in Boston weren't integrated till 74. So these are the things that enrage Allison more I believe, in the play, and she's outraged by them, and she doesn't believe her parents have done anything about it, and now she wants to do something about it. And Walker is also saying, Pearl, we got to do something about this. The world is, I want to be where we can change the world and make the world a better place. And I think that is what's so beautiful about the cross-generational story and what's going on cross-generationally in the country right now, I believe, as well.
Thank you. Who wants to set up our second song, Part of My Heart?
I'll set it up.
Okay.
So Pearl has very crucial decisions that she makes throughout the show. And Ground Beneath My Feet is her reaction to the biggest decision she has ever made, which is to call the blouse man. So Part of My Heart is at the crossroads where she has to decide if she's going to go to the Woodstock Festival, which in the movie, we see her think, we see her go. And she has just witnessed the hippies jumping into the lake at the bungalow colony, which of course isn't shown in the musical, but people are reacting to that. She has learned that her husband can't make it up there because of the traffic, which was real. And at this point in the story, she's been busted by her mother-in-law. Her mother-in-law knows about the affair. And yet she's like this. And so she's singing about feeling like, what do I do?
my God. I don't try to touch the sky. All I know is I gotta go. Part of my heart is calling, calling, wanting, longing, calling Part of my heart is
So beautiful. Well, I'm going to take a few questions from the chat box. Let's see. Allison Gottsagen is asking to piggyback. No, that's another. Let's go to Randy's question because that's a piggyback on his. Randy is asking for Pam. How much of the plot do you leave for the lyrics to advance?
As much as possible. And again, you know, Sharyl was a great mentor in that. And we have one very crucial scene in our story that isn't sung. And that was Sheryl's decision, like this is our little play within a play. But at all the important crossroads, and it's emotional, you know, character drives plot, even though you have these events in that summer that are also controlling the plot. But at the emotional crossroads, we want people to sing about it. So, yeah.
Beautiful. And then Allison says, to piggyback on Randy's question, is it more unusual for a screen adapted show to begin with the idea coming from a composer?
This didn't come from the composer.
Okay.
No, wait.
Oh, no, no.
It's on.
No, we knew the composer, but the idea came from Pam,
Right.
who knew the composer who approached us.
Exactly. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I also want to say that,
Go ahead.
Holly, when you introduced Pam, you know, you said, and Pam was the screenwriter. You know, Pam was the screenwriter, but Pam, this is Pam's story. You know, but this wasn't a studio who took a story and found someone to make a screenplay. This was a young screenwriting student who was assigned to write a screenplay, and she wrote her story. So, you know, I think everyone should, you know, really feel very privileged that, you know, this is, you know, this comes out of Pam's mind, the entire, you know, the characters, the plot, the, you know, the mise en scène. And, you know, so that, you know, in our midst is really the prime creator of the idea of the show.
But I think what's interesting to note is, given the rise of anti-Semitism today, and then you have this crazy person in the Congress, Marjorie Taylor Greene, who's perpetuating this idea of Jewish lasers, for God's sakes. Here you have in Pamela's story, real people, real Jewish people. They're just trying to get along in life, doing the best they can. And, you know, for us, especially this Jewish identity, it is so important. And that's just one thing that's always in the back of our minds.
Thank you. And also,
Can I just, sorry.
Please go ahead.
Just wanted to say, when I was, again, getting goosebumps from Jackie singing that song, from the moment I conceived this story, I knew that Pearl was doing something wrong. Okay, it's immoral, it's unethical. She did break all those hearts for herself. But my goal was, even if you don't like what she's doing, to understand it. And I really felt that in that song. You know, you may think, how could she do this? But at least to have that visceral sense of, I can go inside this person, or she's singing to me what it must feel like to be her. And that's really important to me. And I think it really gets expressed musically in the show.
I think we have to preface it. The reason why she went ahead, as Pamela said, she went to Stupp, the blouse man. Why? I mean, she actually had a pretty decent relationship with her own husband, but there was a disconnect between the two of them. So frequently, Marty did not listen to Pearl. I mean, he would go through the motions, but her own soul, the person she was before she became a mother and a wife, like overnight, she was somebody. But once in this position, she's no longer that person. She's trying to find herself. And so maybe that's what pushed her along to go with the blouse man, because the blouse man listened to her.
Mhm.
And so I'm not really standing up for Pearl, but I just,
You always do, Ruthie, and it's great. It's
Yeah.
always great that you always have her back, right?
yes, I do.
When I-
It's
When I
fabulous.
finished the movie, I couldn't help but think about them 10 years from then. Like what was their marriage going to be like after that dance on the deck, you know?
Good you had that question.
There's a question here from Leah. Will this show also be called Walk on the Moon? A Walk on the Moon.
Yes. Yes.
No.
And
Yeah.
last but not least, was someone saying something? Oh, another question just came in actually. Ruth, early on you made reference to the film being able to be musicalized. I'm curious what you feel specifically makes a film or even a book particularly musicalizable.
Basically, it sings to you. There's emotion in it. And I think that's really what it is. And it's, I know it's an authentic story, and and all what was going on could be musicalized. You can just feel it. It's a gut reaction. And you just knew from the second you thought about making the movie into a musical. It was there.
Ruth, you said it's an emotional reaction to a piece. You know, music by nature is sentimental. It has a sentimentality to it. You cannot take, you can remember a song and where you were and what you were feeling when you first heard that song, or what that song feels. And so, if a movie or a book or even a play that's adapted, when you feel like it can sing, it means that the emotions are just so, you can almost touch them, right? You feel it and you can almost touch the emotions, and that's what makes them sing. That's what makes them sing. And this story, I have to say, from when I came on to this story, sometimes you don't know what to musicalize or what not to musicalize. Like what parts of your story do you set to music and what parts don't you? This was always very, very clear to us, is what sang in this thing.
Right.
Always very clear to us what sang in this thing.
There's another question in the box. Is the dancing Jewish dancing, from Randy?
Josh Prince is a Jew. He's our choreographer. He's a yeshiva kid from Indianapolis, as a matter of fact. Josh, I would say no, it is not Jewish dancing. I think that there's a lot of Yiddishkeit in there. What we're using dance, it's a very smart question. What we're using dance is, that was the beginning of people dancing differently. When you were dancing in the bungalow colonies and you went on a Saturday night with your husband, you did, I can't really lift my other arm, but you did like a box step, or you did a foxtrot, or you did, a waltz. And then all of a sudden the kids and the people at Woodstock are all starting to dance like this. So we're using that juxtaposition of Pearl being in both worlds. On Saturday night, she goes and dances in her husband's arms and lets him lead. Men lead. Women don't lead in that kind of dancing. So, and then, she watches Allison dance, or she goes to dance at Woodstock, and she's leading. She's doing what she wants to do. So we are using a lot of dance to tell the story of what it meant to be a wife and a mother. And, I always said, like, when I saw the movie, before I knew Pam, before I knew Ruth and Steve and Paul, I remember my mother always having this very far away look in her eyes sometimes. And it was that same look that Pearl Kantrowitz had in the film Walk on the Moon. It's like, what more is there? What else is there? What else can I do? What else, what else is there for me? And I think it's like, women weren't even allowed to lead during that time. They had to follow their husbands, who probably didn't dance as well. Marty was a good dancer. So we do use dance to I believe very well to illustrate that.
Well, he taught himself how to dance, didn't he, during the story, in the course of the story?
Yeah.
How does the musical, this is from Lindsay, how does the musical also incorporate the music that was so critical to the time, like Joni Mitchell, et cetera?
We talk about Joni Mitchell a lot.
Yeah, I can. So
Steve, you go on this one.
He's a musicologist.
The movie has one of the all-time greatest soundtracks. And whoever put that soundtrack together really understood the 60s. I mean, there's songs in that soundtrack that, Morning Mornings, Follow, sung by Richie Havens, for instance. I mean, you had to know about the music of the period to know who Richie Havens was and to know that song. There's a couple of Jefferson Airplane songs, but there's a song called Tomorrow, a ballad from one of the second Jefferson Airplane record, which is the perfect song for that movie. So they were delving into the best of the quality of the 60s music. But we're making an original music. We're not taking pastiches and taking songs from the 60s. And in order to have the music tell the story, the music has to reflect the characters and who they are and where they are and their journey. And so by having an original musical, which is very, very hard to write, we've spent years doing it. We have a score that really we think is in the style of the 60s. It's got a sort of soft, ballady, guitar-driven quality to it, but it's an original score, and that's a hard thing to do.
But interestingly, Steve has been really very, very influential and very also very keeping us honest on this, Lindsay. And when we did it in San Francisco, if I have to say so myself, we staged Woodstock really well. And Paul and Pam wrote this really terrific song, but there was something about being at Woodstock that felt inauthentic with an original song in it. Like Steve kept saying, yeah, I really love this. And there's just something, there is something missing. So we're going to do what you would do in a play, right? And we're going to use a real song from Woodstock to tell that story. And also Allison is obsessed with Joni Mitchell, like Pam and I and Ruth are obsessed with Joni Mitchell. So she's obsessed and she knows every song that Joni Mitchell. And so, and Ross is a music aficionado and Ross plays the guitar. So his stuff is very authentic to Bob Dylan. Steve's been keeping us very honest and very authentic on all of that. And I'm excited. George Street is really going to show us whether setting the Woodstocks, to a real, I don't think we got the music cleared yet, so I can't say what song it is yet, but to a real Woodstock song we're going to use as well in the Woodstock scene.
Lastly, I want to ask all of you, someone just said, are we getting discount tickets? Meaning we all want to see the show, right? And we will. And I just want to know, what are you most excited about when you can get back to the theater and see this show again? And just basically go back to the theater.
Well, we hope to be in New Jersey for a pre-Broadway opening in December, this coming December. We hope.
Yeah. We do.
We do.
And then Rabbi Arnowitz said synagogue trip. I'm sure we can coordinate.
We'll do a talk back in person. We'll bring the actors on the stage. I think that just the human contact, theater, the audience is the last character in a show. Theater is a collaborative art. Just being in, I've been doing so much Zoom stuff and so much Zoom theater and Zoom readings, and and then afterwards you're kind of like, okay, You know, they're like, I love like being in a theater and no one knowing that I'm the director, and they talk about, or like Pam used to love going into the bathroom and listen to the ladies talk, you know. I mean, the audience is the final character in our art form. It is. And we haven't been able to practice our art. We just haven't been able to practice our art. So I couldn't be more excited, because this is, as of this minute, this is the first thing back for me, because we're talking about going into rehearsal late October, early November. And that's when we're going to get back in a room together based on, you know, what's going on in the world right now.
And I just want to say how lucky we are that Ruth and Steve are still our guardian angels. They have stuck by us.
Absolutely.
And George Street Playhouse stuck by us. You know, it could have been that we lost it all, but
No,
we have
never.
our people, and we have a theater, and it's just about that date.
Yes, we're determined. We're moving forward. It's the right thing to do, and we're excited about it.
Thank you all so much. You have fed our theater-loving souls, our Jewish theater-loving souls. And for me, I had 3 Shiros on this Zoom and 1 hero, Steve. So I'm really grateful. I really am. And we can't thank you enough. I mean, everyone seems to have hung on, even though we went a little bit over. So thank you, everybody. I really enjoyed this so much, and I hope you all did too. And I want to make sure everyone from WJC does, and not from WJC, pays attention to WJC programming, because I do have some cool things coming up. Bringing a TV film director named Gary Senior, who's got a really fun show called the Jewish Inquirer on Amazon Prime on February 28th. He actually went to school with my husband in England, but that's another story. So I know him also. And we're going on a live walking tour through Jewish Paris on March 21st in the Marais district.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
And I sorry,
That'll be great.
it will be great.
It'll be live for the tour guide, just to be clear. It'll be virtual for us, but.
Right. Tour guide will be live. We will be dreaming and experiencing Wanderlust, just like we are now for theater. And I was told that if you want more information about the show, please let me know. I will get word to Ruth and her team.
Please.
And for sure. So I think we're done. Ruth said I had a smile only on her face for an hour. Can't wait to see it.
Yeah, it hurts.
Holly,
Thank you so much, everybody.
Holly,
Thank
thank you for amazing. Really
Thank
wonderful.
you.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Rabbi.
everybody.
Thank
Thank you,
you,
everybody.
Holly,
Thank you.
Cheryl, Pamela,
Everyone, Holly, that was
Thank you.
all our
Okay,
friends.
thank you very much. Bye.
It's nice to see everyone. It really
Okay.
means a lot to
Hi,
us.
Louise. Okay.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you so much. Bye.
Bye, Mommy.
Bye.
Yeah.